Hey there everyone, Nominally here, and as promised, I wanted to hop on and talk a little bit about my guide for Season 1. I thought about scripting this video, but then I realized life is too short to memorize lines, so we're going off the cuff. No rehearsals, no cue cards, only awkward pauses. So, let's get into it. So yeah, really in kind of designing this guide, I wanted it to be not a wall of text. We all don't want to feel like we're reading a research paper. I wanted it to also kind of be intuitive, concise, not too long. I know it did get decently long at 5 pages, but I think it's really just like the main 4 up at the top here. Of course, big thanks to my buddy Unholy Phoenix. He helped so much in designing this, and I truly couldn't have done it without him. Yeah, so as it says there in the first paragraph, just take a quick skim over the entire guide, because it's kind of meant to be viewed as a whole. I can't reference everything all at once, and so I tried to give little nudges in certain directions, like, hey, I'll talk more about this later, but for now, like, this is what it is. This is the information. So moving on, this is what we know we are going to start with at the beginning of Season 1. We know that from the developer live stream, where they talked about how they were able to implement sort of a quick fix and allow us to keep our fog of war and our map cleared. We're going to get some, but not all of our renown, which is something, at least. For those 5 extra skill points and potion charges are definitely going to be huge. I know the 4 that we start out with when I was playing day 1, I definitely noticed at some points burning through those 4 really quickly, especially early game. Now that probably won't be as much of a problem with us being as quote-unquote overpowered as they said in the live stream, but yeah, I think it'll be a much better leveling experience for Season 1 and getting a little bit. Anybody who started an alt will kind of know what I'm talking about. You definitely feel a little bit stronger than we did day 1 or first character starting out. I'm also interested to see how all those extra altars of Lilith are actually going to play in, because we get those stats as well, which would be really nice. And then moving on, this is what we'll need to go after. So after we have, so it's a total of 2,000 renown, it's 200 for Fractured Peaks, and it goes up to 600. These aren't in the order of the game, by the way. I decided, I figured it'd be easier to structure them in, I am editing my document that I don't want to do. Be easier to have them in terms of level ranks per region. So that is the direction we went. But anyway, 2,000 per region. It goes up in the game for each region, 200, 400, 500, 600, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. So 2,000 total after the 660, for example, for Fractured Peaks, 1,340 for the Fractured Peaks remaining. Now you're going to want to do all 3 strongholds, because it's just 100 points apiece. Time, value, XP, self-explanatory. Waypoints, obviously very important. Dungeons over the side quests, because dungeons are generally going to be a lot shorter most of the time. Side quests, you never really know what you're getting a lot of the time, unless you have a really good memory and remember almost all of those side quests, which I know I certainly don't. I'd rather just kind of be efficient with my leveling process. I don't want to go through the Season 0 leveling process again. So yeah, do all your dungeons. Those are generally going to be faster, and if you're wanting to complete your codex and play on multiple characters, that's going to work to your benefit anyway. And then for your side quests, you only have to do, as we can see here, Fractured Peaks, 11 out of 35. We've tried to kind of narrow those down quite a bit. like Skosglen, once you do your extra 7, that'll also be tied to dungeons. You're done for that region. Skosglen is probably the most efficient, probably, I guess, looking at the numbers, it is also the area that you need the least renown for, so of course it is going to be the most efficient to do. Yeah. So moving on, of course, you get your 5 skill points, 20 Paragon, 400 Oval capacity to round you off at 1,000 for that. Moving on, this is the side quest prioritization. Bit of a mouthful, I know. Unfortunately, this didn't work as well in the shared version. I was hoping that we would all have access to the interactiveness. So in second thought, or on second thought, I'll probably just delete that. But yeah, so out of the 11 side quests for Fractured Peaks, these 9 are also inherently tied to dungeons, and a couple to strongholds, as you can see. Some of these also have prerequisite side quests, which you will have to do. So if you prioritize the prerequisites as well as these 9, there's only 2, or these 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Does one double up? There's 10. I'm wondering if one got miscounted. I thought there was a double up. Anyway, well, I'll look at that closer after this video and tweak it, and you guys will get the updates before season 1 launches. But assuming there's something else that I'm missing, and this is, I was right the first time. So Fractured Peaks, we have 9 out of our 11 plus these 2. So the recommended 2, Raising Spirits, you get this in Kyovashad. We'll go over that a little bit later. And then Secrets of the Spring is close to a dungeon that's just outside of Kyovashad. So again, I won't get into too much detail. I feel like most of this is pretty explanatory. The only thing we didn't do, which we may still try to do, is show you which dungeon corresponds to the side quest. So you know, now I mean, I don't know really how valuable that's going to be, so if you guys think that would be valuable, make sure to let me know, and I can prioritize getting that done sooner rather than later. We didn't really get into, beyond the Fractured Peaks, we didn't get into really recommendations, because once everybody kind of starts hitting 15 and starts getting their expertise, I know those missions are in different parts of Sanctuary, and everyone's going to kind of really diverge. So I didn't want this guide to really, pigeonhole you and saying you have to play this game this way. This is just kind of a broad guide to kind of help you be as efficient as you want to be. So moving on to the next section, the bit we did get as well from the developer live stream was talking about the seasonal blessings and all of the urns of blessing. So I could even remember thinking, this just, my first thought when I seen that screenshot pop up was, okay, what do I want first? And obviously monster kills grant bonus XP is obvious, because like I said earlier, who wants to go through that season 0 leveling experience again? Now the downside is anybody that did buy the season pass did get the tier skips or anything like that, in an effort to steer away from the quote-unquote pay-to-win debate or discussion. They locked everything behind level 40. Now we get our first what is it, Ash or Smoldering Ash, yeah, at level 8 in the battle pass. So based on the fact that there will only be 20, because there's 5 sections or 5 urns, 4 levels an urn, 20 ashes. We know from another screenshot that we get our last our last 3 ashes at level 8 of the battle level 88 of the battle pass, and you need to be actually level 100 in order to claim those. So by 40, we expect that you should probably have about 3, hopefully more. Hopefully by the time you can actually start spending these Smoldering Ashes, we'll be able to fully max out Urn of Aggression, and then really start getting that extra XP, which I think is really gonna be where we're gonna need it anyway. 0 to 40 typically isn't too bad. You're getting levels, every few minutes. It's not until we hit kind of maybe like 50, 60 where it really starts to slow down. I think somewhere in like the mid 60s, or as you approach 70, is where you start getting into like your 1 and 2 million per new level. And anyone who's done dungeon XP farming, like when I was just rounding off my 90 to 100, I was paying a lot more closer attention to it, and noticed that I was getting about 2 million a run at around Nightmare Dungeon 49 through 52 in that range. So once you kind of get to level 60, which no one's going to have at this point, friends to level them through, so that extra 12% is I think it's going to come in pretty huge. So the next beneficial one is Urn of Malignant. Now, I originally had this lower in priority originally, with Reclamation and Bargaining being a little higher up, but Urn of Malignance, as I kind of thought about it more and talked it over with Unholy Phoenix, we don't know how powerful these Malignant Hearts are actually going to make us. According to the developers, they're going to be significant and substantial. So if that's the case, we're definitely going to want access to these earlier than possible. So yeah, if we can increase the drop chance of those, then I think that's the thing that we should prioritize next. Once those have maxed out, and all these bonuses, by the way, are assuming that you've maxed it out at 4 levels. So priority number 3 is really going to depend on your personal preference ultimately. 40% chance of salvaging rare materials. I'm assuming that's like extra rare materials, although it just might be a 40% chance of getting rare materials, because I know some rares don't drop or don't salvage for veiled crystals and whatnot, but and then Urn of Bargaining for extra gold from vendor sales. So really, we should be salvaging all items that we get until we're like level 40, 50 and getting into World Tier 3, because they're just not worth selling. They're not worth enough at the vendors. So if you agree and this ends up being true for you, then definitely I think the call is vendor sales. We want more gold from our sales. Get an early jump, get an early nest egg or whatever you want to call it. Start stockpiling gold, so that you can hop into Sanctuary and just outright buy the gear that you need for Endgame. But again, if that's not the case and you find that you don't have enough materials and you want to build up a bit more of a reserve in your crafting materials before you start full swing into gold, you feel like you're doing all right just getting gold from killing monsters and doing whatever, then by all means go with Reclamation. I really don't think there's a wrong answer here per se, whether you go with Reclamation or Bargaining. It's really just what you have on you that's really going to be the determining factor. And then prolonging for the 60% duration of elixirs. There's a bit of discussion going on about how the additive 5% is really going to work. I tried to do the math one day and I thought I figured it out, and then I looked at it again and couldn't make sense of it. So I don't know, I'll probably take some time and try to figure it out here sometime before the season. But with all the uncertainty with how that 5% is going to stack on the 12%, and then we get an extra bonus for being in party. You know, how all that XP is additive, and with diminishing returns, you know, is that 5% really going to make that much of a difference? Yes, free XP is, you know, XP is XP, and you know, a bonus here is going to add up over time for sure. But honestly, between Helltide Chest, Nightmare Dungeons, and our ability to just craft elixirs, like I don't personally feel like I had an issue running out of elixirs in Season 0. I may not have always had the elixir that I wanted, but really I was just using it for the XP. You know, unless I was really pushing, you know, the limits of my build, I didn't really need the buff that I was getting. You know, maybe things like poison resist, or the one that gives you an extra 30% health, or extra armor, or increased critical hit chance and damage. You know, that might even just, this might even just allow us to really just focus on crafting those. And so we can, you know, if we are using those elixirs, it'll just be due to the fact that we need them, and not the XP. We need the buffs, we need the stats. So by the time that really comes into play, we're going to be, you know, towards the end of the leveling process, and where people are going to be really starting to push into the higher Nightmare tiers. So even if we don't get it until that point, that's, I think, when we're going to more or less need it anyway. But again, this at the end of the day is just my personal recommendation. You know, if you agree that, you know, with my reasoning and my explanations here, then that's awesome. I appreciate that. You know, if you think I'm wrong, and you know, you want Malignants higher, you want that 20% earlier, by all means, do what you feel is right for you. This is just a guide to try to help you be as efficient as you can be, and if it, you know, if nothing else, it just makes you think about it differently, and you know, maybe me being wrong in some way made you stumble onto some sort of a realization or an answer. Well, then that's ultimately the goal, right? And then the last section, reminders before you begin. We will have access to our mounts immediately. Now, to be fair, I didn't confirm this, but it just makes logical sense to me. If we create our alts, we have our mounts. We know the mount is tied to a mission in the campaign, or you know, some mission in Act 4, which if we can skip the campaign, it just makes logical sense that we'll have access to our mounts. Potion upgrades 10, 20, 30. The 15 level jumps are at 45 and 60, and then back to 10s at 70, 80, 90. Utilize elixirs and party XP boost to speed up the process. I know that's kind of a little ironic, being, you know, talking about how I just kind of said it wasn't going to be important, but you know, earlier in the game, before we get to 40, we're not going to have that 12%, so that 5% is going to go a little bit farther, I think, in the short term. So you know, 0 to 40, definitely use elixirs as you can to get that extra XP, and then once you hit 40 and you can start leveling up your earn of progression for that XP, that's going to do most of the heavy lifting in terms of your XP gains. I really don't think that 5% from the elixirs additively, if it does give diminishing returns, is going to do that much. But if someone does know how to do the math properly on that and can show me, by all means, leave a comment, reach out. I love getting into the nitty gritty and that sort of stuff, and just I find it really helps, you know, make an informed decision about, you know, your builds and just how you play the game in general, and the direction you want to go. And then yeah, we jump right into the actual leveling guide, and then there's a reminder of what they told us in the developer live stream, that we just need to log into our character anytime after July 18th, or on or after July 18th, whenever that update goes live, so that all of our character progression, our world progression, gets, like, I don't know, re-uploaded or kind of officiated in the system, so that anytime we create an alt or a seasonal character, we start with all of our world rewards in Fog of War. and then just the obvious create character, skip campaign, select World Tier 2. Now obviously if you find or did find World Tier 2 was a little bit too tough for you, or maybe you're a solo player or whatever the case may be, obviously again you don't have to start on World Tier 2, but in with respect to efficiency, and maybe even assuming that you are playing in a group, but even if you're playing solo in the aspect of efficiency, it just makes sense to start on World Tier 2 because you're going to get more XP if you can handle it. So definitely go that way if you can. And then 1 through 5, obviously should go without saying, but collect the Kyobashad waypoint. The Raising Spirits quest, super quick, it's just emote. I think this is probably going to be a no-brainer for most people. The Forsaken Quarry dungeon is just to like the northeast of Kyobashad. If you take the east exit and then just go northeast, I believe that's where it is anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But anyway, there's a little note. You got to crawl up a ladder and collect a little note, and it'll give you a side quest for Secrets of the Spring. So you do that, and there's your extra 2. And so the other side quests that you take will inherently correspond with dungeons, and then you don't have to worry about running around and doing more work than you have to, and listening to those NPC dialogues and conversations that you can't skip, and just wasting time. Then 6 through 15, we're going to go back to Kyobashad. We should have enough crafting materials to start crafting some elixirs from the caches from the bounties, and any plants that you may have salvaged along the way, picked up. Up until 15, you just level however you want, really. Complete codex related dungeons, because I mean, if we're all gearing, trying to get that renown, right? We want those XP, not XP, that we want those skill points. We want the Paragon points. So yes, there may be a faster way to level through like events, or a stronghold probably wouldn't be ideal until you're getting closer to that 15 to 25 mark. There might be faster levels, but I think again we're going to level up pretty good, especially early game, and with us having all that extra power, we should be able to kind of run over a lot of the trash mobs and maybe even elites. So because of that, we can all kind of, if you're playing in a group, 2, 3, 4, you can all split off, go do some dungeons, and that's going to complete for everyone. So that's it's helping everybody get their renown faster. You're all leveling at a good rate, and then once you hit 15, you go and do your class expertise mission, which I heard, I can't remember where at the moment. Necromancer apparently starts at 25, so sorry, Necromancers. I guess you'll have to adjust this based on your knowledge of the class a little bit. Level 16 through 45, just continue renown progression, collect your waypoints, do those side quests that are related to the dungeons. Keep in mind what codex aspects you're going to want. Think ahead to level 50 and what build you're going with. Maybe prioritize getting some of those class codex dungeons done first. Farm some strongholds. Rax talked about a few really good ones that I wanted to briefly mention here, but definitely go check out his video. He went into a lot of depth into really making effective use of strongholds in the leveling process. So I don't want to take away from his video by going into it here. Definitely go watch it. He is probably one of the most knowledgeable streamers for this game, for sure. By now you should have your rank 3 renown in all 5 of your regions at least, which will give you another 5 skill points, 1 per region. then you go and just knock out your 50 capstone dungeon, get into World Tier 3. So you can probably look at doing that anywhere realistically between 40 and 45. I know when I did my first capstone dungeon, the only reason we were all like 48, 49, 50 was because we had to go through the campaign. But personally, I started attempting the World Tier 3 capstone in my early 60s, and I think I completed it around 64, 65. So these can definitely be done a little early. So min-max your gear, speak to the occultist, reroll, imprint, do all that stuff, and go, crush that capstone as soon as you can. 46 to 65. We're going to want to get all of our regular gear upgraded to Sacred as soon as possible. Try to avoid, unless it's, I don't know, maybe you're doing good for gold and resources and whatnot, unless it's really cheap to do so, try to avoid imprinting those aspects on your main DPS weapon. It's just, if you replace it, it varies how quickly you're going to replace it, because it really is drop dependent, and you don't want to spend money and then just go do, step outside of town. Oh, look, an event. You do an event and you get an upgrade, right? You didn't even get 5 minutes worth of use out of that gold that you spent to upgrade that, and then you got to do it again if you want to actually. So, yeah, just be mindful of that. Again, that's ultimately a personal call. I know in Season 0 I was a little bit more frivolous with upgrading. I'll be a lot more strict with my gold usage, I think, going into Season 1, especially at least until I get to like Ancestral level. Again, World Tier 3, moving on, get your Grim Favors done, get your first Nightmare Dungeon Sigil, and then just start hammering those out. I've also linked Rax's dungeon farming tier list, which to my knowledge he has updated. So check that out. Make sure you're running the best dungeons for the most efficient glyph leveling and time efficiency, and then salvage those dungeon keys so you can craft the ones that you need. Hell Tides, Legion events, world bosses, all of these are going to be kind of important again. Legion events, great XP, great leveling option. So until you're 100, you're going to want to try to do those every time they come up. They're a fantastic source of XP. Hell Tides, obviously, you can kind of sort of target farm certain legendaries with the regular regional chests, and there's of course the chest of mysteries, which will just spit out, I think, the most I've ever heard of one of those legendary mystery chests spitting out was 8 legendaries at a time, at once rather. So pretty crazy. But there's also been times where I've gotten 1 or maybe none, which is kind of frustrating, but that's the risk you take, I guess. And then yeah, complete the capstone dungeon at 70. Get into World Tier 4 again. It's going to vary player to player, but really, you could probably start trying it at 60 with these Malignant Hearts, maybe even sooner. Like, depending on how powerful these new aspects, the Malignant Hearts, like I might try it at 55, 58, and just really see, what these new upgrades can really do for our classes. I think it'll be really interesting. And then 66 to 100. This is hopefully going to be less of a grind, but it's still going to be the biggest and slowest part of the grind. So just focusing on getting, again, just like the World Tier 3, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, same deal. Focus on getting all your gear from Sacred to Ancestral as soon as possible. Complete any remaining Renown, and get your 20 Paragon points if you have not done so by this point already. And then just continue farming Nightmare Dungeons, leveling your glyphs, and then we'll see what other endgame options Season 1 may have. And of course, this is all, like every other guide I'm sure you've seen, this is all based on, you know, what we know right now. We know a little bit about the season of the Malignant, but we don't know everything. So, you know, all of this guide could, in theory, non-zero probability, all of this guide could get thrown out the window day one. We don't know, but realistically, that's probably not going to happen. But also realistically, you very much probably will have to kind of use this as a guide and not a manual, I guess. And just kind of make some changes on the fly and make the changes that make sense to you. And then lastly, I have some links to some other content creators' pages. Of course, Rax, I've mentioned him earlier in the guide. I've linked some of his other stuff. This is his Season 1 leveling guide link, and on the left is the link to his channel. Majestic Gaming is another one. He had a really good video on occultist re-rolling strategies and just tips and advice for gold management, which I found really helpful. And of course, Murder Inc. He's my go-to, honestly, for barbarian stuff. I think all three of these guys are actually barb mains. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if that wasn't enough of a clue, I of course am a barbarian main myself. So let's all have a moment of silence and pray that Blizzard is done with their relentless barbarian nerf. Whatever. Yeah, their nerf conquest campaign, whatever you want to call it. Barbarians have been through enough. Let us recover. Let us lick our wounds and pick ourselves back up, and yeah, dust off, and we'll be back stronger than ever, I'm sure. And then just lastly, a few additional links: d4builds.gg, great site. Another one that I didn't link here that I probably will after this is Mobalytics. I generally prefer d4builds.gg over Mobalytics. However, Mobalytics does have a nice function of when you're adding in your skill points to your skill tree, it keeps a record of exactly which order you added them in. So if you add a basic and then you go to your core and then you go to your defensive and then you go back and add something else like a passive in your core or something like that, it'll record the exact order, which I thought was kind of cool and nice. Something that D4 Builds does not do for you, but so they both have their pros and cons. But D4 Builds is typically the one I generally gravitate to. And actually, the new interactive map on Maxroll, which I found out about through one of Rax's videos, is probably the best one that I have seen to date. There are some similar ones out there, but I think this one really kind of incorporates the best of all of them. I don't think I've found anything that the other maps out there, the other interactives, can do that this one can't. So best of all worlds, I think, for the Maxroll map. And then helltides.com. Now I think that map actually has, if I remember correctly, timers for legions, helltides, and world bosses as well. It will show you where the helltide chests are as well for the mystery chests, but having an extra resource is never a bad thing. And that's pretty much it. There's a little blurb at the bottom for when I was posting on the Diablo 4 subreddit there, just linking to my YouTube and TikTok. Of course I am on YouTube, this is where you're watching, but I do post most of my content on TikTok right now. I'm going to try to make more of an effort to actually make content on YouTube rather than just live stream, which I do every Friday. It does vary due to work, but I usually start around 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern time. Again, it just varies because my schedule changes month to month, so it really is dependent on when I get off work. But yeah, generally between 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern time is generally where I start, and I usually keep the stream within 2 hours. Sometimes I will go a little bit longer depending, but yeah, that right now is the schedule. That is the guide. I hope it helps. I really think it will. I had a lot of fun putting this together. Learned a lot putting it together. I'm hoping you all learned something from it. I hope you guys get as much enjoyment and value out of it as equal to the fun that I had making it. And other than that, I will probably see you all in Sanctuary. Until next time.